All right, welcome back to Word of the Rings. And this time we're going to be talking about episode 5 of the first season of Rings of Power. And as usual, it is me and Pastor Brian. And I'll just throw this out to Pastor Brian. Is there something you'd like to mention first about this episode, episode 5?
I guess I'm just always a little bit of a critic. I love this series, and I thought it was a good story, but certain things bother me, and this was to me the talking episode. So there were parts the first time through it that I fast forward. I didn't fast forward through it all this time because I knew I was going to be talking about it with you. But yeah, I would have cut this episode in half probably. And I love Numenor. I can't stand the Numenorians right now. They annoy me, but I love Numenor. It's beautiful. And those uniforms, like the gay boy in me just loved all those uniforms. And then when she walks onto that ship, I mean, it's just like there you really feel like she's an angel, right? Like, it feels like Saint Michael just walked on or something. So, yeah, I mean, it's kind of the middle of the season storytelling episode. Yeah.
Yeah, I did like the Numenor stuff. I like that in Numenor we see more people on the set. So it looks like there's lots of people in Numenor. Whereas the other places have looked very depopulated, even when we're kind of told there should be lots of people there. Like, I don't see them. Where they go? The Numenor does feel like
And while not an
populated.
Yeah, not an important scene, but I think it was the most fun scene. It was a goofy scene, but I thought that was fun when Galadriel was sparring with all of them with the sword fight. I thought that was probably the most fun part of the episode to me. The rest of it was all kind of annoying talking drama that I didn't understand where it's coming from or why it exists. So
okay, yeah, that was a cool scene, and you've got to think that these dudes, they're teenagers. There you go. Don't lean back too far, you disappear.
Oh, I'm disappearing.
Yeah.
It's like that Homer Simpson. Yeah.
Okay. So, they're teenagers, I guess, or maybe early 20s. And she, of course, is conceivably millions of years old. Now, see, you're gone again. Now you're back. And now she's commander of the Northern armies, or she was. So you think she didn't get that position by being someone who can't fight. So yeah, you gotta think these guys are like teenagers, and she's been fighting for thousands, if not tens of thousands of years, depending on how you want to measure time before the sun or the moon, So she should be a heck of a lot better than any human because she's had a long time to increase her skill set. And so she is pretty good. She does get clipped by one there toward the end and gets a promotion. But yeah, I'm glad that they show that she is better than them. And you think, well, of course she should be. She's had a lot more practice. So I did like the scene. It was fun. But it does show us that in Numenor, too, we're seeing this we're still seeing this drama between the queen and then her main advisor, Pharazôn, is basically kind of being sneaky. His son even asks him, like, why are you supporting the queen and why are you doing this? And he's got to say, look, you're an idiot because this is why. And I don't know why you don't understand that. And so he is looking for trade, apparently, with the Southerners. So he wants Halbrand installed as king, so Halbrand owes the Numenorians his throne, and he's looking forward to riches coming. He's talking about the exchanges of different kinds of material that they could have. So yeah, he's looking for the future in terms of money, and his son is seeing it in terms of, you don't agree with the queen's policies, so how can you agree to do this? And this father's like, well, you got to be clever about this, right? Think about what you want long term. And so it looks like the queen and I agree on this. It doesn't mean we agree on it. It just means that we want different things, but the path is the same for now. And then the queen, of course, talks to her dad, who tells her not to go because all of that lies ahead of her is darkness. So I'm not sure what that means exactly. That you could interpret that multiple ways. But I do like, as you see behind me, I've taken this background of the Numenor. You see Tarma there over my shoulder, so the tall mountain, um, where the Numenorians have an open air shrine at the top to the one god, and they don't go there much anymore. But this lovely city and this lovely bay. I mean, I really like the look of it. It's great. Of course, on this, you can see where they're spending this $1 billion, right? The costumes are gorgeous. Every single one of them seems just to be like great, and the sets and everything. I'll be curious to see how the exterior shots go for season 2 because they've moved from New Zealand to the UK. And you can certainly find similar places in the UK, but I'll be interested to see where they film now they're not in New Zealand anymore. So,
yeah, I mean, sure I would think the UK. Yeah, I didn't realize that should be way different kind of terrain.
Somewhat, but we'll see. And New Zealand, their tourism department will be unhappy because, I mean, when we went to New Zealand in 2004, everything was Lord of the Rings. Even the airplanes were painted with characters, And there was all this Lord of the Rings this and Lord of the Rings that, and filming locations here and filming locations there, and so we saw a lot of filming locations, and so that was cool. But New Zealand is gorgeous, so if anybody, just as a side, has a chance to go, you should go. But we won't be seeing it in season 2, so I'll be interested to see what season 2 looks like. All right, so in this episode, then, not only we get Galadriel, but we get a lot of Elrond and Gil-galad and Durin and a bit of Celebrimbor, with the subplot that I don't understand. I don't understand why the elves are going to fade away by spring if they don't get mithril. And it's like, what does that even mean? I mean, at the end of the Third Age, Galadriel tells the Fellowship that basically any elf that doesn't go to the west will eventually kind of fade until they are the folklore people of hedgerows and stuff. In case it will just be like, I guess, diminished in power and size, and they'll be like the little pixies that, steal your shoes at night or whatever. So that seems to be what we're talking about in a sense, except that it's going to happen like right now. Like, we have no time left. This is it. It's going to happen. And it's like, why? And what does mithril have to really do with it? And what is this mysterious fading of the elves that's just started and is going to finish in like 6 months? I'm not getting it.
And I was confused the first time I watched it, just by like, oh, was this the leaf falling? Is this one of the trees? Is this? But this time I noticed he showed that like the tree was like dying or covered in some kind of a growth or something. So then, which even made it less make sense with mithril to me. It would seem like you would try and fix whatever is causing the tree to die, right? Like it just seems like whatever's causing the tree to die is the problem, right? But,
I guess mithril. I didn't understand it. I don't understand it either. And I don't know why we're introducing this. It's like we don't have enough. We don't have enough conflict. We don't have enough tension. We have to introduce this weird. The elves are going to like die off by spring. I'm not understanding why we're doing that. Maybe by season 2 it'll make more sense. At the moment, it just seems unnecessary because we already have this sort of like Gil-galad and Celebrimbor are playing Elrond, and he's finally figured out. And Celebrimbor just finally admits it. He's like, well, I asked Gil-galad to be honest with you from the beginning, but he said no, and he's the king, so I couldn't tell you that when we sent you to Durin, we already knew all about mithril, right? And then I don't understand why Elrond just doesn't tell Durin, because it's going to be clear to Durin, one would think, that Gil-galad and Celebrimbor know about mithril, and he's going to think Elrond broke his oath. Why doesn't Elrond say, look, I didn't tell them. I've kept my oath. They already knew. They sent me, and they knew all about it to begin with. and they just kind of like left me dangling. I didn't realize what was going on, but I didn't tell them. They didn't find out for me. So, so I guess we're supposed to also find it funny that Durin gives this whole lie story about, oh, this sacred stone on this table, and we only use it for really sacred purposes, and then later he's like, Decent wants a new dining room table, So, he's playing the elves a little bit. They probably know that, and Gil-galad's just like, dining room table, whatever, let them have it. So I guess that was kind of the fun part. But the rest of this whole interchange between dwarves and elves, and then Elrond and Celebrimbor and Gil-galad, to me is nonsensical. I haven't understood it. So if you understand it, viewer, and you would like to put in the comments what we missed, let us know, because I don't know why we have to have elves dying by spring or fading or whatever they're going to do. Lose their immortal souls. Elrond says something like, what? How? Why? I mean, it still makes no sense. So Gil-galad still doesn't strike me as a high king. He just seems so, I mean, I don't know if that's the actor's face is just doing it, but he just always to me looks confused. Like, yeah. I don't know what's going on. You're like, but you're like the High King. Give us some gravitas, give us some sense of authority. And he doesn't.
Yeah, maybe that's he looks choice. Like Norma Desmond staring off into the distance dramatically. But yeah, he has no gravitas, and the way he talks to Elrond, again, I feel like it devalues who Elrond is, and it also, I just don't feel like that's how Elven High Kings lead, right? And so it does. Those scenes with him really make me uncomfortable. I noticed it again this week. Yeah.
And he's even like disdainful. Like he says, you should, do you know this story? And Elrond's like, well, there's something. And he's like, tell me the story. Then he says, Elrond Paradil. So Elrond half-elven. It's like, so why did you just suddenly call him that, except you want to like lord it over him that one of his parents was human? And I don't know why you would, because his parent, who is human, is now got the Silmaril, and he's the morning star and the evening star. So, and as Galadriel says in the Lord of the Rings, it's our most beloved star. So the fact that that's his dad, you would think would have a certain cachet, but it doesn't seem to. Now, I do like the scene where Celebrimbor says, I was there the night your father left, and your mother was begging him not to go. And it's like, yeah, if you live for so long, you should be able to give these stories to people you met 1,000 years ago, 10,000 years ago, 1,000,000 years ago, whatever. Like when Galadriel sees the painting of Elrond and Elros in that library in Numenor that Elendil takes her to. And he's like, oh, I forgot, you would have met him. Right, to him, that's the first king of Numenor. That was almost 3,500 years ago, right? And it's like, oh yeah, you would have known him, right? You would have met him. You've talked to him. You'd think there'd be some questions like, what was he really like, or what were your impressions of him? To me, he's long dead, and to you, it's like someone you used to know. And here we get this Celebrimbor doing the same thing. I was there the night your father left. And you're getting this story about Elrond's parents. Apparently, he hasn't heard before. And, it's really kind of touching that this is getting brought up. And so I like those little scenes where we're seeing the consequences of having immortal characters, right? They're not just mortals. The writers are actually writing them kind of like immortal. Yeah, they were around 3,500. They could tell you what happened personally. They saw it, right? They met this person. So, yeah. So, almost 4,000 years ago, whatever, I was there. I saw your dad and I saw your mom begging not to go. Cool. I love those little touches. Like I've said, there's these little things they're putting in the show that I really, really love, little cultural things. And then these little bits from the elves on, I was there at that time. Here's what I personally experienced. We see a little bit of that with Arondir, when someone asks him how old he is or whatever, and he's like, well, I was born in Beleriand, so that's the first age. So I don't know if he was old enough to fight in the big war with Morgoth. We don't really find that out, I don't think. But still, we know he's 3,500 years plus old, so he's seen some stuff, and he could tell you, what was it like in the beginning when you first started watching. Of course, he hasn't been here the whole 3,500 years at the Watchtower. But if he was around between the first and second ages, he should have seen some of the destruction and what happened to all the Southerners, when they set up these watchtowers originally and sent these elves to go watch the humans and wander through their town every 2 weeks. So you're starting to get a little bit of how old he is compared to many humans trying to understand what it's like to be talking to someone who could tell you stories of these times that to you are just so far in the past or barely even legendary. It's just too far. So I like those little bits.
Yeah.
We do see a couple of interesting little things. We see Halbrand make a sword. So he thus proves to the guild that he's good enough. At this point in the season, I'm pretty sure most of us watching kind of figured out what was going on with Halbrand. So we know why he's a good smith, right? We know who his teacher was, if we know anything about the Silmarillion. So the fact that he can make a sword, in a sense, isn't that unusual, because he should be able to. But he's now beginning to show the things that he can do. We've seen him be clever and tell Galadriel to, hey, calm down, you can be clever too, and get the queen to do what you want if you listen, right? Stop all this banging your head against things. He did last episode. So he's now showing himself as someone who maybe knows a bit more than he ought to. Maybe he's a bit smarter than just some wanderer from the southern lands, right? Because even if he's the long-lost king that Galadriel believes he is, he's still basically just been wandering around, right? So when did he have time to become a master smith? When did he have time to learn all this, statecraft or whatever? No, he's just been this wanderer. He hasn't been a king, So the fact
Did you catch that nifty? Did you catch the nifty trick he did with the sword after Galadriel was sparring with all the young soldiers? He does a little nifty thing with the sword, and it was kind of interesting, I thought. Yeah.
So you think she should be faster on the uptake and realize that there's more going on with this guy than he was just some wanderer that happened to be shipwrecked or whatever. She doesn't, though. She's not very clever sometimes. She's very, if you said she's driven, we see her being more driven and very focused, and to this point where, Gil-galad's I got to get this woman out of here. I can't take her anymore.
Right.
Get her away from me. All right. So, but one of the things that I think in this episode that bothers me the most, it was the Harfoots. We saw them before crying over those Harfoots they have to leave behind who get killed by wolves or whatever. But we've also seen them be willing to just abandon Harfoots when the going gets tough, when we don't really have the going getting tough yet. It's at this point, there doesn't seem to be any problem with helping out someone who's lame. Back a few episodes ago. But in this episode, we literally get, not just walk too fast and let them kind of fall behind. We have a character go to the trail finder, whatever his title is, and she's look, the stranger is the cause of all our bad luck. And he's what do you want me to do about it? And she says, take their wheels, strand them here. And I'm whoa, that's murdering them, right? That's just you might as well just slit their throats. You're going to cripple their carts so they can't follow. It's not just that they're going to fall behind. They will be stuck wherever it is you are until the wolves get them or humans kill them or whatever all the perils are that are here, on the road, or starve to death or whatever it is. You're just going to end them, right? and they seem to have the same route they go every year, because Nori tells the stranger, oh, in the spring we stay at here and we eat this and that. And in the fall we end up here in the grove, I think, and there's carrots and apples and stuff. And then so next year, when you come through this same way, you'll see their abandoned carts and their dead bodies, right? And some bones straddle around because you left them behind purposely. You crippled them. And what is going on with the Harfoots? It's like, this is like cruel beyond cruel. How can these people then claim to like be all comfy, loving each other, and they're all supporting each other, and we're all Harfoots together, blah, blah, blah? Doesn't go.
Yeah, it's occurring to me as you're talking. Maybe that's why this episode isn't one of my favorites, because it's showing like the worst. It's showing the worst of Numenorians. It's showing the worst of the elves. It's showing the worst of the Harfoots. It's showing the worst of the villagers. They split up and go surrender, you know, and all. So that really seems to be every community we're looking at right now is showing its worst to a certain extent.
Yeah, we're seeing like the dirty underbelly of everybody's society. Yeah, I hadn't thought of it that way, but we kind of did, because yeah, here are the elves that come clean. You know, Celebrimbor, hey, you know, we've been lying to you. I asked gil-galad not to, but what are you gonna do? He's the king. And you know, we see Durin lying to the elves to get the table back, which at least is a little more funny, you know. But yeah, you're true. The Southerners are now split. Those that want to surrender to Adar and those who don't. And this is the one where we get the scene where Adar, for some reason, asks that orc to expose his arm so it can burn. It's like, okay, I thought you liked the orcs. You know, you're their father. You're Adar. But then he says of the son, you know, I'm going to miss it, and I wish you could feel the way I feel it. So we do get this sort of regret from him that, you know, his plans for his people are for their benefit, right? He wants to permanently smudge the sky out with smoke so that Mordor becomes this land of shadow, so the orcs can always go around without worrying about the sun. But he won't get to see the sun anymore. But it's more important that the orcs don't get to see the sun anymore, right? So he's going to sacrifice something he's going to miss for his people. So we still get this really interesting character from him, you know.
Yeah. I think you put it too altruistically, but I mean, he's going to sacrifice the sun so that he can have more power, because the orcs will have more power. But you know,
yeah, but he's going to miss it. So it's like, you
not
do
just
get
for
more
their
of a
benefit; it's so that they can do his. Yeah.
But for him
It's so they can do
there's
his
some
bidding.
kind of sacrifice that he's willing to make, but it's still, he regrets it a little bit, and then so he's not so two-dimensional, you know.
Yeah.
So you know. So yeah, you're true. You're right. We're getting a lot of like everybody's being bad, I guess. We get Pharazôn, you know, out there. Even like Isildur, what he gets in a fight with somebody, they burn up a ship, and then he and his friend lie about that they were the ones who burned the ship up, and so they're thinking now there's like saboteurs who are trying to stop the expedition from going to Middle Earth, you know, and it's like, no, it's just your idiot son. Ooh,
that was another really weirdly contrived scene to me. That was a very weird scene to me.
Okay, and the other thing this episode introduces, which makes no sense to me at all, even having this seen the whole season, we have the three witches from the Scottish play who apparently left their production, and are, you know, stopping with the feet by a faux pas, by the pricking of my thumbs kind of stuff. You know, something wicked this way comes, or whatever. To I don't know what, to be three weird witchy sisters doing something. And I guess I'm fine with not knowing about it in this episode, but having seen the whole season, we never, to me, really figure out who they are, where they really come from, or what the point of them is. So there's lots of weird story things going on I don't get. I don't get the whole Mithril and the elves fading thing. I don't get why Elrond doesn't just tell Durin that Celebrimbor and gil-galad already knew about Mithril. I don't get what the three witch sisters are doing here and why they don't just go back to their Scottish play and their blasted heath. Um, it's like, huh? So there's just a lot of like, what the heck are the storytellers doing?
Yeah. Yeah. There's a lot of material that they're pulling from. I don't feel like they need to contrive so much extra, maybe. You know what I mean? Yeah. So I don't know.
Yeah, it seems like they're trying to fit in some conflict that when we already have plenty of conflict going on. Because the whole
Exactly.
Numenorian stuff, that's pretty canon. I mean, Pharazôn was not a nice person in Silmarillion. If you read the Akalabeth, because Muriel's not married, I guess, at the time, and he forces her to marry him so that he can be king. And he's one of the big reasons of the downfall of Numenor because he's an evil king. So the fact that he's scheming against Muriel, even though in the public he maybe looks like he agrees with her, great, that works for me. That's the kind of conflict that's already in the story. Cool. Um, I mean, I'm a little annoyed that Isildur is such a stupid character. It's like, okay, because is he gonna like get me smarter anytime soon? Because he's kind of an idiot. A lot of teenage boys are idiots, so but does he have to be quite so big of an idiot? But all right. But then we just get all this stuff thrown in, the three witch sisters and the mithril and the elves, and it's just like I don't even know why that's there. Why is there not enough with the orcs
Yeah.
and the Numenorians and this thing between Celebrimbor and Gil-galad on one side and like Elrond and Galadriel on the other side, and we got a lot of conflict we could be mining for stuff. And instead, we're just sort of inventing conflict. And maybe by the end of the 5 seasons of this, we'll know. But at the moment, having seen all 8 episodes, it's just like,
Yeah. And it occurred to me for the first time actually this week. They don't realize that Galadriel didn't go back to Valinor.
Not yet.
Right?
Not yet.
Yeah. So I didn't put that together till this week. It was like, oh yeah. They don't know what's going on with her up in Numenor or whatever, so.
Right. Not until the Numenorians show up. Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, so they'll find out in a couple of episodes that she's back and they will all be surprised. But yeah, and they should be surprised because you would think that she would have gone back home to Valinor. And she doesn't.
Yeah.
She decides to swim back, which was kind of odd, but okay. I mean, I guess she's immortal, I guess. But I mean, the elves can die from injury or grief, right? I mean, that's weird. People just die of grief and like in these things. Even like, but in all of the operas from the 1800s too, Puccini and stuff, it seems like people just get sad and then they take to their bed and die. And like, I didn't know sadness was terminal like that. But characters do that in Tolkien. They're just so sad that they just take to their bed and they die. And you're like, okay. Sure. So yeah, elves can die of sorrow and they can get killed by injury, but they just don't die from disease or age. So, I guess she could have drowned.
Or they fade away if they're true. They fade away if they don't get mithril,
Yeah, or what or something. We don't know why. They're just going to. It's just made a statement. How do they even know that? How did they figure that out? How does Gil-galad know if we don't get like a ton of mithril out of those dwarves, we're all gonna die or lose our souls or whatever by spring? Who told him that? How did he figure that out? Who figured it out? Celebrimbor? He doesn't seem that smart. So yeah, where did this information even come from? There's no one who came to say, hey, guess what? See that tree? It's dying. So like the tree, you'll all get like black icky fungus all over you and you will die or something. I mean, how does this
So that's
knowledge
not canon,
impart?
huh?
That
That's not part
yeah,
of the canon.
I don't think so. No. And so yeah, it's only canon that if you don't go at the end of the third age, you will eventually fade away. Um, but yeah, which is a whole other thing because then you don't know why Galadriel's husband doesn't go with her. In the movie, you notice at the end of Return of the King, he's there with her. Celeborn is with her. But
Yeah.
in the Lord of the Rings, he doesn't go. And it explains, you have to look at the appendices to understand that he doesn't go. They don't say that in the actual text. But it is he has like one of the saddest lines in the whole book when he and Aragorn part for the last time. He says, "Kinsman, may your doom be other than mine, and your treasure remain with you to the end." I don't know why he says it or what it means, because that's all you get. But if you flip through the appendices and you see that after Galadriel sails, he is still in Lothlorien, you're like, well, why didn't he go? But then you know what he means, may your doom be other than mine and your treasure remain with you to the end. He realizes his wife's going to leave him. They've been together for thousands of years, and now she's going to go home. And he's not going to go with her. We just don't know why he doesn't go. And so then you realize how sad that little exchange is. He's hoping that, well, hope Arwen stays with you because my wife's not going to stay with me. And you're like, oh, I'm sad now. It's a sad life. So yeah, I don't get why Celeborn stays at the end of Lord of the Rings. I don't get the elves here. And I'll probably cut all this out. This is too much of a digression. Yeah, but it's
But it
just
was
like
interesting stuff to me.
All right, so that's our review of episode 5. I hope you enjoyed it. If you did, please hit the like or hit the dislike. Leave us a comment. And if you can answer some of those questions, if you think you know why suddenly the elves need Mithril, they're all going to like die off or whatever. And if you think you know why we have the 3 witchy sisters showing up, let us know. I'd like to hear some ideas about that because I am just confused. So let us know, and we will see you next time. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.